what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Frater Oz again. No, I haven't been making a lot of videos. I'm out here just focusing on stacking money, building some kind of a future for me to retire. And that's pretty much kind of where my will is at right now. But I've been seeing a lot of posts lately about people talking about post-Crowley Thelema and taking the Crowley out of Thelema. And this is a thread of discussion that comes up over and over again and that I've been seeing take place for years and years, okay? And I wanted to just touch base with my subscribers on this topic. So, first of all, I want to talk about a line from Liber Porta Lucis, the book of the Gateway of Light, okay? Liber Porta Lucis, I'm sorry about the lighting, the sun is coming up, it's early in the morning. But Liber Porta Lucis talks a lot about bringing mankind from the darkness and into the light, and how, that's basically what Thelema is meant to do, okay? And in this book it says, we shall bring you to absolute truth, absolute light, absolute bliss. It says, many adepts throughout the ages have sought to do this, but their words have been perverted by their successors, and again the veil has fallen upon the Holy of Holies. And I think that this is an important concept when we're talking about post-Crowley Thelema, and when we're talking about trying to take Crowley out of Thelema, which, like I said, over the years, many people have sought to do this. Many people have, pushed this idea of removing, de-Crowleyfying Thelema, okay? That is basically what Liber Porta Lucis is warning against, and it's also what the comment warns against. The comment, basically says all matters of the law are to be made only by appeal to my writings, each for himself. And I've talked a lot about each of us building our own Thelema. But the thing about it is that your Thelema is built on the back of the foundational documents, which were written by Aleister Crowley. So, in my mind, there's no real separating Crowley out of Thelema, because as long as our Thelema is remaining grounded in the Book of the Law, the Holy Books of Thelema, the classed documents, you will never remove Crowley from Thelema. And attempting to do so perverts the message, like talked about in Liber Porta Lucis. And this is the downfall of major religions forever, is that, if you believe in it from a spiritual perspective, from a supernatural perspective, let's say, this light is shone down upon prophets, and those prophets throughout the ages have attempted to communicate this light using language, which Crowley talks about how all language is basically a lie, and that you cannot communicate some of these concepts with language. But that's what these prophets, nevertheless, throughout the ages have attempted to do. When you look at the story of Moses and Jesus and Buddha and all of these different prophets, they went through some sort of transformative experience where this light, if you want to call it that, this gnosis, this deeper understanding of the workings of the universe, has been shown down upon them, and then they have gone forth and tried to spread that message to the rest of us, okay? But then the people who take up that message after they're gone interpret and change and twist and turn until the original message is lost. And that, in my opinion, is Thelema's greatest strength, is that we are all to connect with the original material on our own. We don't have interpreting this for us and changing it for us and twisting it for our ears. Removing Crowley from Thelema would be a huge mistake, attempting to remove him. Now, it would pervert that message. The message is already perverted to a certain extent, but those of us who are able to connect directly with the material and shut out much of the noise from other people are able to connect with it correctly and at least get as close to that source of light as possible, meaning that it's just one step, the light to Crowley to us. But the minute you put somebody in between that, you cause these problems. It's like if you get, you've seen that experiment where you get a line of people and somebody whispers something to somebody at one side and they each whisper down the line, and most of the time, by the time it gets to the last person in the line and they speak up and say what they were told, it's a completely different message. So it's important that we keep Crowley and Thelema. Now, with that said, okay, I want to make a clear distinction between Crowley the man and Crowley the prophet. Okay, I think that's when we experience problems, is when we try to glorify the man instead of adhering to the words of the prophet. Okay, I would never suggest that any of us try to emulate Crowley, to be Crowley, to emulate Crowley in his own life, or to try to live like he lived and be like he was in everyday life. Crowley, in a lot of ways, was a horrible person, okay? And he says, that he's failed, and he talks about even if I, the chosen one, fail, how much better then for you to fulfill the law or whatever, So he knew that he was not the best person to emulate. And I think that there's this distinction that many people don't draw between Crowley the man and Crowley the prophet. And it's where we talk about how he received a lot of these documents. They were more like channeled documents, the Class A documents, than they were Crowley the man. Okay. Now there are some of the classed documents that were Crowley the man speaking, but when the man is taking things seriously as far as Thelema and the occult is concerned, I do believe we should take heed. Okay. But a lot of this other stuff can be thrown to the wayside. And I think it's important for you to be able to distinguish the one from the other, okay? So, I think that a lot of people are unable to do this, and that's why they want to take Crowley out of Thelema, because they look at the things that he did in his life, and they think, well, this is no prophet, no model to follow. The whole point is that he was imperfect. The whole point is that the light shone on him even though he was imperfect, and that we also can seek that light even though we are imperfect. He said he doesn't want to father a flock. He wants us to cut our own way through the jungle and all that stuff. But that doesn't mean to take away Crowley from Thelema. That means that we absorb the information that has been provided, and then we use that to cut our own way through the jungle. Not try to pretend like we're Crowley or be Crowley or, emulate him in his life or even in his magical practice. He talks in lots of places how there are many different paths to the light, and he's basically just showing you a framework that works for him that he thought would work for a lot of people. That doesn't mean that you have to do everything exactly the way it's laid out. However, like I've said before, I think that we should all at least give it all a try the way he did it. It allows you, when you do it and journal it and look at it from a skeptical mindset, it allows you to then more effectively build your own pathway to that light. It's a system for you to learn and to teach you how to then integrate all of these things that you find successfully. There's no taking Crowley out of Thelema, guys. I mean, yes, if you just look at it from the terminology post-Crowley Thelema. Yes, Crowley's dead, so technically we are in a post-Crowley Thelema, but you cannot take Crowley out of Thelema. Like, you can't. He is the prophet. The book of the law straight up says, obey my prophet. Okay? It doesn't say emulate my prophet. It doesn't say live the way my prophet lived. It says obey my prophet. Okay? And so we need to be always incorporating and always taking into account Crowley the prophet's words. And, Crowley the man is another story. So I just wanted to put that out there, guys. I wanted to just kind of throw my thoughts out there and tell you, don't get caught up in the post-Crowley Thelema stuff that's going around. It goes around. It has been for 20 years. You just have people who just have an aversion to Crowley and they want to do their own thing. If you want to do that, go. That's what Wicca is. If you want to do that, be a chaos magician. You know what I mean? But if you're going to be a Thelemite, you have to be taking into account the words of Crowley the prophet, and that's just what it is. I mean, there are people who live their lives without ever hearing of Crowley in a Thelemic way, but that doesn't really make them Thelemites to me. Okay, like if you're going to follow Thelema and you're going to call yourself a Thelemite, you have to be taking Crowley's words into account, and there's just no way around that. And the ones that are out there doing it, if you're versed in Thelema, the ones who are out there and have been out there in the past doing this, like separating out away from Crowley, you see how their philosophies and their practices diverge wildly from what we would consider to be Thelema. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with this, except for when they try to go promulgate this idea of removing Crowley from Thelema out into the world, and new people get caught up in it. So don't allow yourself to be caught up in it. Always continue to take the book of the law and the Class A documents into account, to take the words of Crowley the prophet into account, and then use that to integrate it into your own personal Thelema. I mean, that's the way it's meant to be. That's the only way that we keep Thelema pure in the sense that we don't pervert that light that was transmitted down to Crowley for others. Because the more stages of that happen, the more perverted the message becomes. The further we stray from that light, the harder it is to convey the message. So I hope that made sense, guys. Hit that subscribe button, like the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Love is the law. Love under will.